I'm Michael Thompson, and this is the story of how one bitter, cold night in mid-December changed my life forever. I was burning the midnight oil in my cramped downtown office, surrounded by the dull hum of fluorescent lights. I was reviewing the final pages of a contract that needed to be wrapped up by Thursday. Normally, I wouldn't procrastinate, but lately, my motivation was as thin as the frost that clung to the windows. I sighed, stacked the documents neatly, and locked them away in a polished mahogany cabinet. Running a hand through my thinning blonde hair, I couldn't help but think about Chelsea, the stunning blonde enchantress waiting for me at a downtown hotel. She wasn't my wife, Brittany, she was my secret escape from a decade-long marriage that had slowly lost its luster. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text, Suite 808, can't wait for you, accompanied by a playful kiss emoji. For a fleeting moment, I felt young again, carefree, powerful, unstoppable. I draped my cashmere overcoat over my suit, checked my reflection in the window, and with a self-assured grin, left the office. I strolled into the parking garage, already imagining the hotel room and the promise of Chelsea's company. In my distracted state, I didn't notice a shadowed figure leaning against a concrete pillar. One moment I was fumbling with my car keys, lost in thoughts of a passionate reunion, and the next, a sharp, bone-crunching blow slammed into my face. My head jerked to the side as I staggered, slamming against a pillar. The searing pain and the hot trickle of blood on my overcoat were the first hints that something was terribly wrong. Then came a brutal punch that drove into my gut with the force of a sledgehammer, the air escaping my lungs as my knees buckled. A swift kick to my groin sent me crumpling onto the cold, damp floor. The overhead lights blurred into streaks as I fought to regain my senses. In the dim light, I made out the shape of my attacker, a hulking man about 6'2", broad-shouldered, clad in a dark wool coat and leather gloves. His voice was calm, almost unnervingly friendly as he said, "Don't try to talk just yet, you've got a lot of blood running down your face, and it's not a good look." Before I could process his words, he slapped me hard across the face, forcing me to focus. "Wake up, Michael. We need to have a little chat." Dazed and terrified, I managed to stammer, Who are you?" He tilted his head as if considering the question. "Who am I? Let's just say I know a lot about you, your job, your family, your little secret. And most importantly, I know about Chelsea." My stomach churned as his words sank in. "You thought you could be clever, sneaking around behind your wife's back and meeting your mistress in hotels, like some sort of secret agent?" Before I could protest, another sharp slap cut off my response. "No more talking. This is my show, and I'm the one asking the questions." Grabbing me by the lapels of my coat, he hauled me up until our faces were inches apart. I caught a whiff of the leather on his gloves and something faintly metallic, blood, perhaps. In a dangerously low tone he demanded, "Do you know who I am?" I weakly shook my head. Leaning in closer, his eyes burned with an icy fury as he whispered, "I'm Jake Mason." Ring any bells? I remembered, in passing, that Chelsea had mentioned her husband as if he were just background noise in her life. But now, staring into Jake's unyielding gaze, I realized just how badly I'd underestimated him. With a mocking smirk, he observed, "There it is, the look of a man who knows he's in deep trouble." Releasing his grip, he let me slump back against the concrete pillar. I tried wiping the blood from my face, only to hear him add, "You look like hell, Michael. But don't worry, it could have been a lot worse. I've got everything I need, photos, dates, times, even a text from Suite 808. I know that was where you were headed, right? You thought you could keep deceiving Brittany by sneaking off for secret rendezvous with my wife?" I tried to form a defense, but my words were lost amid the haze of pain and humiliation. "Listen carefully," Jake continued, now crouching in front of me with a calm yet chilling tone, "You've had your fun, Michael. Now it's time for consequences. I don't take kindly to a lawyer who betrays his spouse and then thinks he can simply walk away unscathed." The sting of shame burned through me as he added, "I've done my homework. You work for Carter and Reed, a respectable firm, maybe a bit out of your league, but guess what? Mason Industries is one of your firm's biggest clients. My heart sank as I realized where this was headed. Here's the deal, Jake said, his tone hardening. By the end of February, you're going to pack up your desk, submit your resignation, and disappear. I don't care where you go, just not here. Because if I see your smug face anywhere near this city after that, let's just say tonight will feel like a warm embrace compared to what's coming next. Every escape route in my mind closed in on me. I could lose my job, my reputation, everything I'd worked so hard for. Desperation choked me as I croaked, why are you doing this? Jake's smile turned cruel. Because it's personal, Michael. You didn't just cheat on some random woman, you betrayed my wife. And while I'm left to pick up the pieces of her shattered trust, you'll share in the fallout. Fair's fair, right? I could only stand there, paralyzed, my face pale and clammy. Now, there's one more thing, he said, standing and reaching into his coat pocket. He produced a large envelope and roughly tossed it into my lap. Inside, you'll find a little parting gift, some cash, a plane ticket to Orlando, and photos documenting your time with Chelsea. Think of it as your starter kit for a new life. My hands trembled as I stared at the envelope. What do you want me to do with this? I managed to ask. Jake's tone was unnervingly casual as he replied, you're going to deliver it to Chelsea. Meet her at the Hilton, just as you planned. But instead of your usual routine, hand her the envelope and tell her it's over. No tears, no drama. Just a clean break. And if you refuse, he leaned in so close that I could feel his cold breath. I'll make sure everyone in your life, your boss, your wife, your kids, sees exactly what you've been up to. Believe me, Michael, I have all the receipts. The weight of his threat crushed me. Too broken to argue, I simply nodded. Good. Now go clean yourself up, you've got a date to cancel, Jake said, turning abruptly as he strode toward the elevator, leaving me bleeding and utterly defeated on the cold concrete floor. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity, staring blankly at the steering wheel. My face throbbed, my nose still trickling blood despite a crumpled tissue stuffed in one nostril. The beating wasn't just physical, it was the crushing burden of knowing that my carefully concealed secret had been exposed, and I now had no choice but to obey. With shaking hands, I started the engine and drove downtown. The city lights blurred through my vision, the world outside felt distant and surreal. When I finally pulled into the Hilton's parking lot, I sat for several more minutes, trying to collect myself. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I winced at the sight of my swollen, bloodied face. I reassured myself that I'd tell Chelsea it was just an accident, but deep down, I knew she wouldn't believe me. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the envelope and headed inside. I knocked weakly on Chelsea's hotel room door. She opened it almost immediately, her face lighting up, until her eyes fell on the bruises, the swollen nose, and the blood at the corner of my eye. Michael, she gasped, her voice a mix of warmth and alarm. What on earth happened to you? I barely managed to mutter, I ran into some trouble, as I stepped past her and closed the door behind me. I couldn't face her just yet. Inside the quiet suite, I finally looked her in the eyes. Chelsea, listen. It's over, I said, my voice hollow. Jake, your husband, knows everything. I thrust the envelope into her hands. He gave me this to deliver. It's all the evidence he needs, photos, times, places, of everything you've been involved in. Her hands trembled as she slowly opened the envelope and pulled out the damning photos. Tears welled in her eyes as her face crumpled. Oh my God, Michael, I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispered. I let out a bitter laugh. Mean for what to happen? The secret rendezvous? Getting caught, she pleaded, shaking her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. You don't understand, Jake isn't just going to leave me, he's going to ruin me. I stepped closer, my voice low and unyielding. "Oh, he would, Chelsea. And he's not bluffing." Overcome, she collapsed onto the edge of the bed, burying her face in her hands. "What am I going to do?" she sobbed. "That's your problem," I replied curtly, turning to leave. "I've done my part. Good luck explaining this to Jake." Before I reached the door, I paused and, with a mix of anger and regret, added, "I wish I'd never met you." I left without waiting for her answer, slamming the door behind me. The drive home was even longer and heavier. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I was too exhausted to care about my appearance or how Brittany might react. Inside my house, the kitchen light was still on. I staggered in, went straight to the bathroom, and stared at my battered reflection in the mirror as Jake's final words echoed in my mind, "You'll carry this memory with you forever." And he was right. After washing up as best I could, I made my way to the kitchen where Brittany sat at the table, laptop open and a mug of tea in hand. The moment she saw me, her expression shifted from mild annoyance to pure shock. "What the hell happened to you?" she demanded, rising so quickly that her chair scraped loudly against the floor. I hesitated, gripping the counter for support. "There was an incident in the parking garage," I mumbled. Brittany crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "An incident? Michael, you look like you've been in a bar fight. What exactly happened?" I couldn't meet her gaze and muttered something incoherent. The weight of the night was crushing me, I simply didn't have the energy to spin a convincing lie. "Brittany," she said firmly, "look at me." Reluctantly, I lifted my eyes to hers. After a long, tense silence, she finally snapped, "You're lying. Whatever happened, you're not telling me the truth." My shoulders slumped as I whispered, I cheated." Her eyes widened in disbelief and fury. "You cheated? With who?" she demanded. I hesitated, then sighed, "Chelsea Mason." A bitter laugh escaped her. "That explains everything. I'm guessing Jake didn't take the news too kindly." I rubbed my bruised jaw and muttered, "You could say that." Brittany paced the kitchen, her voice rising with every step. "After everything I've done for our family, for you, I can't believe you went and did this. You're pathetic, Michael." I couldn't muster a defense, I was too broken to fight back. "Tonight, you're sleeping on the couch," she declared icily. "Tomorrow, we're going to have a long conversation about what comes next, and you're not off the hook." The weeks that followed blurred into a haze of consequences. At work, rumors spread like wildfire. Before I could even finish my resignation, Jake's influence had his company pull their business from Carter and Reed, and soon my colleagues treated me like a pariah. In a final blow, I was summoned to the managing partner's office and given a choice: resign quietly or be fired in a very public fashion. I had no option but to pack up and leave. At home, things deteriorated even faster. Brittany filed for divorce within weeks, her lawyer demanding full custody of the kids and a significant portion of my dwindling savings. Meanwhile, I never saw Chelsea again. Word had it that Jake had followed through on every threat, sending her packing with nothing but the clothes on her back. She'd left town, far from his reach. Eventually, I moved to another state, settling into a small, shabby apartment on the outskirts of a modest city. My career lay in ruins, my family was shattered, and my reputation was beyond repair. I spent my days taking on low-level gigs for small firms and my nights endlessly replaying that fateful night in my mind. Jake Mason had been right, I would carry the memory of that night forever. In the end, I'm still not sure who suffered more, the one who betrayed or the one betrayed. One thing, however, is crystal clear: I underestimated the power of consequences. Jake didn't just seek revenge, he scorched the earth beneath me. Sometimes I wonder if I should reach out to apologize to him, but every time I recall his cold, unflinching eyes and the warning he delivered, "If I ever have to see you again, you won't like what happens next," I know that silence is the only way to survive. This is my truth, a cautionary tale of deception, regret, and the high price of betrayal.